Hello everyone, and thank you for coming to today's webinar, How to Get Involved in a TRB Standing Committee, Secrets from the Pros. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's webinar. First, a quick intro about the webinar host, the National Operations Center of Excellence. NOCO is a one-stop shop that offers resources for the transportation systems management and operations, also known as TSMO community. Visit the NOCO website at transportationops.org. At our website, you can find news and resources on all things related to TSMO, and you can register to receive our bi-weekly newsletter and future notices about our webinars and other events. A recorded version of this webinar, along with the presentation slides, will be available on our website by tomorrow. To access the webinar recording, you can go to our Knowledge Center. Also, a link in a thank you follow-up email will be sent out to you. For those of you just joining us, welcome. We are about to start today's webinar on how to get involved in a TRB standing committee. And here's our agenda. Our moderators today are Nicola Ivanov and Leila Hajibabai from the Operations and Preservation Group Young Member Council. In the first part, Nicola will talk about some of the general ways you can get involved with a TRB committee. Next, we'll have James Bryan, who is a TRB staff, and he will share his perspective with us. They will be followed by our presenters and representatives from committees. We have Max Perchanok from Maintenance and Preservation Section, Larry Rado from Standing Committee on Critical Transportation Infrastructure Protection. Next, we have Judy Corley from Standing Committee on Pavement Preservation, and then we have Tina Greenfield from the Standing Committee on Winter Maintenance. At the very end, we're going to have a question and answer session, so please, if you have any questions, enter them in the question pane here at any time during the presentation. At the end, Leila will go through the questions and read them out loud and pass it around to different panelists here to answer them. So with that, I'll hand it over to Nicola. Nicola?
Great, thank you. Well, welcome everybody. I appreciate everybody being on this call today, including the presenters and all of you in attendance. This is the third one in the series of 3 webinars that we planned for this year, so it's the last one for this year. My name is Nicola Ivanov. I'm the co-chair of Operations and Preservation Group Young Member Council. Representing primarily operations section, and then as Neela mentioned, Dr. Hajibabai is on this call as well, and she's representing maintenance and preservation section as a co-chair on this young member council. So I'll just go through quickly through a few things just to give you a little bit of a background as to what we are and TRB in general and some ways to get involved. So with that said, I'll talk a little bit about the TRB structure and where Operations and Preservation Group Young Member Council actually sits. And this is just kind of a generic picture. It's not supposed to be all of the details of TRB, because covering TRB in 5 to 10 minutes is impossible. So this is just an attempt to give you an idea of where everything is. So we have TRB Executive Committee, below which we have Technical Activities Council, and this council is known for mainly all the work that's associated with TRB annual meeting, which is one of the flagship events that everybody always thinks about when we talk about TRB. And within the Technical Activities Council, there's a number of groups that are represented. So you see policy and organization, planning and environment, design and construction, and so on. All these groups represent different facets of transportation, and within those groups, there are frequently sections. So in case of Operations and Preservation Group, there is an Operations section and Maintenance and Preservation section, and we have representation from that section on the call today. And then within each one of these sections and groups, we have a number of standing committees, and it varies as to how large these sections are and how many committees exist. We have some representation from several standing committees within this section and actually outside of this section. And then, in addition to standing committees, each one of the standing committees might have a number of subcommittees and task forces. So this just kind of gives you the idea of TRB structure as a whole. When it comes to Operations and Preservation Young Member Council and Young Member Council in general, Young Member Council kind of sits at the same level as the Technical Activities Council, and then within Young Member Council there are what we call subcommittees of Young Member Council for each one of the groups, and that's where really we are today in terms of the Operations and Preservation Group Young Member Council. And our mission and vision is to provide a forum and support for all of the students and young professionals that are coming into TRB and kind of getting integrated into the TRB process as a whole, young members being considered folks that are 35 years or younger. And our vision is really to get them integrated into the standing committees and get them really involved in the work that the standing committees and TRB in general does. So some of our activities as far as Young Member Council is concerned, we have a fairly active Young Member Council website. The link is available there. You can actually click on it, but this is going to be available as a recorded webinar as well, so you can get it there. And here we just try to share some information with respect to the work we're currently doing and any news and updates that are relevant. In addition to that, we have a fairly active LinkedIn group. This is a group where we're encouraging discussion on topics that are relevant to both operations and preservation sections, so it's something that everybody can get involved and contribute to as well. This year we've established a mentorship program. What we did is we requested people that are interested in being mentors and mentees to fill out an application, a form, where they can kind of express what they're interested in doing. And then we did a matching session where we matched all these pairs, and we've actually gotten a really good response with about 50 folks, and we have 25 pairs that we've matched together that are all going to be doing different types of mentorship over the next several months leading into TRB and out of TRB annual meeting, and we're actually going to meet there as well so that everybody can meet each other in person. While we've done the matching, that does not mean that this program is over, so if there is interest, please click on these links, fill out the form, and as we get more people and we can do more matching, we're going to continue to match people together and provide this mentorship opportunity. So this set of webinars came out of an idea that in 2017 at the TRB annual meeting, so in January of this year, we ran kind of a reverse poster session, and this poster session was intended for standing committees to be able to advertise the work that they're doing, the activities that they're involved in, specifically to their committees, and allow both young members and other folks that might not be aware of the work that's being done in these committees to get exposed to that. And the idea was really to expose that work and to allow them to recruit some additional volunteers, some help and in terms of friends and members and so on, but also allow young members to determine where their expertise and interest might be best fitting when it comes to the committee structure. As you know, in that first slide I showed you that the committee structure is pretty large, and so finding the right place can be a challenge. So this led to an idea of having a webinar series. So we had one in October, one in November, and we have one today where we're representing several different committees and the section and talking about the work that they're doing and ways that you could get involved in each one of those committees or within the section in general. That's what we're doing today, and our focus today will be on really connecting standing committees with enthusiastic young members that are looking to get involved. On the topic of getting involved, and I think James will cover a little bit of this as well, but generically this is out of my experience, there are a few ways to get involved. First way to get involved is really learning and connecting. And there's some bullet points here. Again, this is not comprehensive, but things that I think everybody should consider. Attending the welcome and new attendee orientation session. This is a great session where a lot of information is covered. I think it provides a pretty good basis for understanding of TRB and TRB annual meeting. And even if you've been to TRB annual meeting in the past, I highly recommend going to this. The representatives from different sections and groups and standing committees are available there to talk, and and discuss things. So it's a great way to network and learn. The other one is to attend your group Young Member Council meetings. We'll be sending shortly an email with an agenda of all the meetings that are going to be happening. There's a TRB career fair that I think James might mention as well that's going to be happening this year. Clearly there's a number of sessions and workshops that you can attend, networking events, and then I was mentioning earlier the mentorship program. Finding a mentor is a great way to get involved and ask questions and ask for help. People are always happy to answer questions and are always there to help out, get you integrated into the process. In addition to learning and connecting, you can also volunteer, and you should volunteer. Some ways that you can get involved are to become a friend of a committee. Friends of a committee can do everything that members of the committee can do except vote. And I will say that that's sometimes the best way to get involved. You can join subcommittees within committees and help out in that way. Everybody always looks for paper reviewers. If you have expertise in an area, doing paper reviews is a great way to learn about what's going on in current research and assist committees in handling their papers. You can help draft research needs and synthesis statements as part of subcommittees that might be doing this and committees that are working on it. And you can work on other things like helping maintain committee websites or social media accounts, organizing and running sessions and workshops, and so on. Again, this is just a subset of ways that you can get involved. I think these are all opportunities that everybody should consider moving forward. And what I'm going to do now is pass it on to James to talk about some other ways that you can get involved on a general level, and then you'll hear from all the committee and section representatives on specifics with respect to their committees.
Okay, Nicola. Thanks. My name is James Bryant. I'm a senior program officer for the Transportation Research Board. So my area that I support is the maintenance and preservation area. I've been with TRB for about 11 years now. Prior to joining TRB, I worked for the Virginia Department of Transportation and also worked in the private sector performing maintenance services on roadways and bridges. And I too one day was a new attendee or a young member of a TRB annual meeting and was definitely at that time felt a little overwhelmed, but you don't have to feel overwhelmed. And hopefully with the things that have already been talked about today, the things that I'll talk about, and the things that will be talked about later, that'll help ease your transition and provide you some helpful hints in coming to our annual meeting. So a little bit about TRB. We are part of the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine. We are a private, nonprofit institution. We are not an association. We are independent, nonpartisan, objective. And the three things that we typically do, the big main categories are research, both conducting and managing research, convening, and as well as to advise. Most importantly, the convening is the part where we bring all the folks together for the annual meeting. And I'll talk a little bit about those three now. So in terms of the research, we have the cooperative research programs. We have highway, transit, airport. We publish 900 or so papers per year within the transportation research record. We also maintain the TREAD database where you can look at all types of transportation-related records and citations. Advise, we do provide independent, objective, evidence-based, fair, nonpartisan policy studies that are done in accordance with the National Academies of Engineering and Medicine procedures. And of course, convening, where we have the TRB annual meeting, where over 220 technical committees, 330 subcommittees, 18 task forces meet and conduct their meetings as well as sessions and workshops at the annual meeting. So what are some ways that you can initially connect with us? One, if you do not already have a profile on MyTRB, go to MyTRB and create your profile. That'll allow you to become a friend of a standing committee, and you can become friends of multiple standing committees. Also, as Nicola talked about, attend the annual meeting. You know, we'll be there with 13,000 or 14,000 of your closest friends. We also sponsor, and our standing committee sponsor webinars. You can be involved in those webinars. Be sure to subscribe to the TRB weekly e-newsletter and the TR News magazine, but the weekly e-newsletter continues to provide information. Something happened to the slide. Okay, continues to provide information on TRB activities, as well as you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Google+. So in terms of the composition of our committees, you know, Nicola talked about the committee structure and the group structure, and within each group or section, there are several standing committees, but each committee is composed of 25 or 25 members or more. So we have 25 regular members. There are also 5 young members. So to qualify as a young member, you have to be 35 or younger at the time of your appointment to a committee. We also have 4 international member slots. There are 3 emeritus member slots, as well as 2 slots that are specifically geared for state DOTs. Our committees pretty much run on a 3-year cycle, and so that means that every 3 years, every 1/3 of the committee has to be rotated, and there's a 9-year maximum of continuous tenure within a committee. So because of the fact that our committees continuously need to be rotated, there is a need for us to identify a diverse cross-section of individuals to help kind of fill in for where those rotating people are coming from. So in terms of committee friends, and I think Nicola talked about this as well, you know, a friend of a committee can be as active as a member. They can help plan annual meeting sessions and workshops. They can be members of subcommittees. They can join a discussion on all committee actions. They can review papers. And as said before, it's often a source of where members are rotated onto the committee. So, you know, people will look at your local activity and your interests as well as your technical background in determining new members for committees during committee rotation. The only thing that a friend cannot do is they can't vote on committee actions. So again, we encourage diversity of background, race, ethnicity, and gender in all the work that we undertake, and we're definitely looking to continue to increase that diversity and inclusion as we go through committee rotation. So at the annual meeting, you know, you can look at the different sessions and things that we have going on at the annual meeting. You can get into or access the interactive program where you can create your itinerary. You know, after the annual meeting, you'll have access to all of the papers or extended abstracts and presentations that will be presented at the annual meeting. I would encourage you to take a look at the committees to find the committees that you may find of interest, and for sure attend a committee meeting and a session of those committees that you find of interest. Introduce yourself to the chair. You know, find out, you know, ways in which you may be able to help support what the committee is trying to do. So, you know, on that Sunday, we are having the Careers in Motion Networking Fair. This is going to be our first career fair, and we're just trying to provide an opportunity for attendees to meet and network with prospective employers from a wide range of multimodal transportation-related disciplines. This is going to be the first year of our career fair, and we're really excited about this networking opportunity to see, again, what the employers will bring to the table, as well as providing opportunities for our attendees. We also have the new attendee orientation, or TRB Bootcamp. You know, and here is where you're able to learn about the opportunities that are available through engagement with TRB. You can get some tips on navigating the annual meeting, making the most of your time, during your week, learn about the value of continued participation in TRB technical committees, understand the tools that are available and the resources that are available that are developed by TRB and by our committees. And lastly is that, we look forward to seeing you in January. Again, there's my contact information. If there are any specific questions for me, after this webinar, as well as when we get to the Q&A. Okay. I think next we're going to have Max.
Roger. Okay, thanks, James. Yeah, my name is Max Perchinock. I'm chair of the Maintenance and Preservation section of TRB. I'm probably going to reinforce a lot of what Nicola and James already said and put my own spin on it a little bit. The first thing I'm really happy to have this opportunity to engage potential new committee members and friends of TRB. I think, following on what you've already heard, the first step in becoming involved in TRB is to learn about TRB. And as you heard from James and Nicola, it's a large organization and it can seem quite complex. So I'm going to simplify it a little bit by giving myself as an example. All of the committee members of TRB live a double life. We have our day job, which presumably pays our salary, and we have our TRB job, which is voluntary. And in most cases, I think in all cases, they're extremely complementary. One, they really reinforce each other, and you get a lot of satisfaction from that. My day job is coordinator for Innovation and Sustainability at the Ontario Ministry of Transportation in Canada. Before that, for a lot of my career, I was involved in research in winter maintenance and other types of maintenance, and before that, I was involved for a while in research in the marine transportation industry. At TRB, I started long ago as a member of the Winter Maintenance Committee. I was invited to the committee. I served on that for quite a long time, and eventually I became the committee chair, which is now has been taken over by Tina. I'm also a member of the Surface Transportation Weather Committee, and I'm a friend of several committees. And I find that these things really work together. Being involved in a committee keeps me in contact with people from around the world that do what I do in my day job, and my day job gives me a lot of experience and knowledge that I can contribute to TRB. So it's a really valuable experience. So I think Nicola showed an org chart for TRB. I'm sure everyone memorized that. So I'm just going to verbalize it a little bit in my own way. So as I think Nicola said, TRB has more than 200 different standing committees. They cover all modes of transportation. Those standing committees are divided into or grouped into 29 sections, and the sections are grouped into 5 topic groups. My responsibility is for the Maintenance and Preservation section, which is part of Operations and Preservation Group. Judy, Tina, and Leela fall within that group. Laurel, who is also a speaker, is in the Policy and Organization Group. So each of the groups cover a large topic, the sections cover a smaller topic, and the committees cover a very specific topic. So if you're at the bottom of the slide, you see the Operations and Preservation Group. It has, I think, 25 different standing committees divided into 3 sections. That's the Maintenance and Preservation, Operations and Traffic Management, Security, and Emergencies. And really, they're about traffic moving safely and efficiently in all weather conditions and all operational conditions. So if we look at the Maintenance and Preservation section, I would say the activities of those 15 different committees can be sort of summarized as providing cost-effective life cycle for highway infrastructure and safe driving conditions for the public. And so there's a lot of specific topics that we cover, including pavements and materials, bridges, weather and traffic-related operations, personnel, managing operations, equipment, and roadsides. So it's a large group with a lot of expertise. This is just a screenshot of our standing committees from the TRB website, and the reason I wanted to show it is just so that everyone realizes you can go onto the public website, click on the committee, see who the chair and all the members of those committees are, and that is a way of getting to and as well as a short description of the committee's mission. So that's sort of a way of learning about the committee. On top of that, it also lists the committee chair and members' day job. So that is another way of getting to understand, what does this committee do? What are the people all about? Do I think I will fit with that? Is there something I can contribute to it? And so I mentioned that people from two of our committees and one subcommittee will be speaking, and those are the ones that are circled here. So this is sort of a generic slide. It's not about any specific committee, but I think it'll help you folks understand whether you would be a good fit in the committee. And probably the answer is going to be, whatever you do, it's going to be a good fit. James talked a little bit about the makeup of the committees, and this is my ideal of an ideal standing committee. And really it represents its stakeholders in terms of location, that is across the U.S. and across the world, levels of government. Do you work for, or we want to represent municipalities, regions, states, national governments? So it's the entire range. Governments that have a lot of resources, governments that don't have that much resources, public sector, private sector, academia, people involved in operations, regulations, developing standards and specifications, doing the actual building and operating, high traffic levels, low traffic levels, and also individuals that are at different stages of their career. Someone with a lot of very recent academic knowledge, someone with a lot of practical experience, someone with management experience, someone with research. I think a committee that has the widest range of representation and the most diverse experience is going to contribute the most. So, whatever your background, there's probably something you can contribute. So you've heard some of this before. What are the activities of a typical committee? Well, I think what we mostly think about is activities at the annual meeting, and that's where we have a business meeting. Each of the committees has a business meeting and sponsors technical workshops of various types. That's sort of where the most of the effort and most of the focus goes. But there's also activities that go on in the year, and you don't have to come to Washington and attend TRB to be involved in those. Many committees sponsor webinars during the year, and these are ways of, they're really for technology transfer from people that have recent expertise to practitioners. A lot of committees have teleconferences several times during the year to keep committee members apprised of developments in the field or planning for the next annual meeting or planning for other events. Many committees hold a specialty conference outside of TRB. For example, winter maintenance, surface transportation, weather hold one every 4 years, and I think many other committees do something like that. Committees are responsible for developing research needs that would be eventually implemented through, through a TRB synthesis project or through a National Cooperative Highway Research Program project or funded by other agencies, a lot of them connected with AASHTO. And the committee members also provide a technical information resource for the public. That's something that perhaps isn't used that often or isn't that well known, but there are cases where the public comes to a committee chair and says, I need to know something about this particular field. Can you direct me to the experts? So that's something else that the committees do. So I guess getting down to the brass tacks of it, how to get involved. Some of these, again, you will have heard already. I think the most important thing, as James said, is to become a friend of a committee. You basically register yourself. It's not, there's no selection process. You decide you want to be involved with a committee, sign yourself up as a friend. You can also introduce yourself to the chair or another committee member. And as I mentioned, you can find the names of the chairs and committee members on the public website. And just meet them either at TRB or phone them up or send an email and say, I'm interested in being involved with the committee. Here's my background expertise. I have time to share as a volunteer. What can I do? We've talked about the annual meeting. I think a lot of the time when people think about the annual meeting, they think about the technical sessions. But most of the committee business meetings are open to anyone, and that is it's a really great place for face-to-face contact. You can meet the chair, you can meet the people in the committee, and you can meet other people in the audience who aren't members of the committee, but are probably working in your field. If you do attend the meeting, be sure to sign the roster sheet so that the committee has your contact information on record. And whether you're attending the committee meeting or you've just signed up as a friend and you start getting emails from the committee, raise your hand. Be sure that that people know that you're available and interested in volunteering. And there's a list of things there that you can volunteer for. It's already been mentioned, the paper review committee. Every paper that's presented at TRB is reviewed by at least 3 people, and you could be one of those people. If there's an in-year teleconference that's advertised or that you're aware of, participate in it. If there's an in-year committee meeting or a specialty conference, be sure and attend that, or if you're able to attend it or able to participate, volunteer to help out. They all take a lot of planning. Likewise with the webinar. And I guess the last thing is, if you're able to attend a meeting or a teleconference and you have an idea that maybe that you haven't heard from someone else already, don't be afraid to raise your hand and tell people about it. It might be something they haven't thought about, and something that can take the discussion in a different direction. So that is my message from someone with lots of experience on different committees and at different levels of TRB. It's a great organization. There's lots of ways you can be involved, but the most important thing is to make sure that the people on the committees know that you're available and know that you want to help. Thank you.
Thanks, Max. Next, we have Lori from the Standing Committee on Critical Transportation Infrastructure Protection. Lori?
Good afternoon. Which is my presentation?
Give me a second to put it up.
So while it's bringing it up, I have to say Max has given the best oversight. And thank you, Nikolai and James. So those are all words of wisdom. And truly, I would support them 100%. We really, as a committee chair, want to tap your knowledge. As Max said, our members who are recent from university are up on the latest, so have an awful lot to share. Let's see, how do I? Oh, good. So the Transportation Resiliency section, which is the newest section at TRB, came into being in 2014. We have 3 committees, came from other parts of TRB, and a large part of it is that the reason for this section coming into being was from just after 9/11, I want to say early 2002, TRB devoted a great deal of funding first to transportation security and then later to emergency management. And as a result, a great number of research papers were produced. And so sort of as a way to acknowledge that this was a very top-level issue. I think it was one of the spotlight issues last year, along with emerging technologies in public health, and resiliency will continue to be so. One of the specific missions that this section has been given, which is, I have to reiterate what Max was saying and Nikolai was saying, was websites and social media, was the section was directed to get the word out on resiliency and to spend a lot of time getting the rest of the committees in TRB familiar with resiliency. So we are all working on what the term is, and I'll discuss some of the things we've done recently to help spread the word, and to do sessions with other committees, which we've done throughout the 3 years we've been underway. Wrong way. Some of the past activities that we've done, as we were the lead TRB committee for that series of research on emergency transportation security and emergency management, and as if I remember correctly, it's about 165 completed research tasks, all available, and there are a series coming out even this year. To make sure that that information got transferred, because what's more as important as research is, if it's research that is applied research that can be used by practitioners, as do many other TRB committees. We partner with an AASHTO committee, and our committee from, again, 2000, as that committee was stood up, the AASHTO Special Committee on Transportation Security and Emergency Management, TRB sponsored an all-hazard summit every August from about 2006 to 2013. That AASHTO committee, actually in large part because of what TRB did as we set up the resilience section in 2014, has established a resiliency section, which is underway, being formed right now. We'll start working with them shortly. So that's when Max and others talk about outreach and working with partner agencies, that very much is one. Again, some other past activities that we had underway in both 2014 and 2016, we were with the sponsoring agency from a committee from TRB on the International Symposium on Disaster Prevention and Mitigation of Infrastructure, which is a great way of hearing what's going on in other countries hearing what TRB is doing. TRB does a great job, and if it's your first time at TRB in January, you will see a lot of international attendees. They take that information back with them, and feel free to meet up with them. The other interesting thing I learned just as I was at that meeting in China was there had been some Chinese professors who had attended TRB years before, and they had taken back all that awareness and established a very similar conference that the first one's being held in 2016. So that is a great mark of TRB's ability of being that neutral site for research, so that, and it may, in the future, may offer some opportunities for folks to travel overseas to other conferences. So there's this wonderful forum, and not just national, but international. Some 2017 activities. What I didn't include here was in January, at the January annual meeting, there was a marvelous interactive workshop on how states would work with federal government, federal agencies following a disaster, moving goods, supplies, and other necessary materials. And the one that's coming up next month is promising. I think it's Getting the Public Involved is the title, is looking to be even more dynamic. And I encourage you to attend. The one that was held this year required folks to have their devices, mobile devices. It was very well done. As it was so well received, it won a Blue Ribbon Award from TRB, and that was organized by Ann Weeder-Strauss, who's chair of one of the other 3 committees. These are two publications that the section produced this year. It got underway about a year and almost 2 years ago. It is, I don't know if you are on the mailing list for TR News, but it was published this past November 2017, and then we had so many articles that the circular is available as well. So if you want to get a sense of what we're doing with regards to resiliency, these are the most recent, and these are ways that we work to get the word out on resiliency to our fellow committees at TRB and others groups as well. And I have to say the authors are all well known in their field. Some of the upcoming activities that we will have at the annual meeting. We have got, I think, 3 workshops going against each other Sunday afternoon. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend because I'll be at the new members meeting. I have been to the past 3. I find them incredibly valuable, and I will be there at the table on the for the resiliency section to answer questions and to talk with you. So stop by. I've given the time for our meeting on for the full committee. The agenda has been posted to the TRB website. And we've got 3 subcommittees. Feel free to participate in any of those subcommittees as well. The cyber is very active. The physical security and supply chain are also active, but they all offer very helpful, useful perspectives, and input is always valued. As Max said, research papers are critical on the writing of statements, and this is where the research statements are more likely to bubble up. So if you are interested or doing work in this area, please stop by. We also, I've managed to lose myself. We also have a, we also have, such the luck of Max. And there I am. And we also have a resiliency poster section. Please feel free to, I encourage you to go see them. These were the top papers that were out of the 45 that we reviewed that we accepted. One of the things we will do to continue to promote our area is the summit. We will have a summit October 8th to 10th in Denver, Colorado. It turns out I'm also the co-chair of that planning committee. So there is a direct link between our section and the Resilience Conference and Summit, and we expect a large number. If you're interested in materials starting to come out, there will be some flyers available at the annual meeting. I want to reiterate what Max and others have said. If attend the new meeting, a new attendees meeting, and you don't have to just sit at one of the tables. Go to as many as you'd like. Attend sessions. If you find the session topic of interest, find the session's primary sponsor to learn more about the committees and or attend the full committee's meeting. Not always does is the moderator or the presenter the chair of the committee, but if they're not, they should be familiar with the committee and chat with them. Attend committee meetings to learn more about their activities. Attend subcommittee meetings. Become a friend of the committee. All these are critical. I would also, one other thing, if you, we always need reviewers, and the coordinators of our paper review panel shared with me that if we didn't have friends, we would not have been able to have the necessary eyes to review our papers. And to become a paper reviewer, you have to go to a somewhat separate website and or database. And I think you can do it you do it through my TRB, but list your areas of expertise. And you may get asked to review a paper that isn't in your area. That's okay. If you read it with the eye of if you don't understand it, then others may not. Read it to make sure it makes sense. If it's not, there are many ways to review a paper. So we look forward to seeing you, and thanks. And I completely lost my presentation, but.
Thanks, Lori. Next, we have Judy from Standing Committee on Pavement Preservation. I'm just going to pull up her presentation here.
While she's doing that, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. I'm Judith Corley-Lay. I'm the chairman of AHD 18, which is the Committee on Pavement Preservation. My day job, my full-time job, is as chairman or as director of the National Center for Pavement Preservation. And I just started that position in April of this year. So my work and my day job and my TRB job, just like James and Max were telling you, they closely coordinate together. Okay, what is pavement preservation? Well, I'm getting a bunch of feedback.
I hear that too. Lori, could you mute your line?
All right, we'll try this again. Nope, it's still there. Let me try it one more time. Pavement preservation is the application of lower cost treatments to pavements while they're in fair to good condition so that you extend the time before you have to do something expensive. And by doing these treatments, an agency can save a huge amount of money and really maximize the value of what are, in fact, very constrained budgets. So it's a very important, very practical topic area. What are the topics that are of interest to AHD 18? The treatments. Chip seals, slurry seals, fog seals, microsurfacing, crack sealing, cold-in-place recycling, hot-in-place recycling. There's a whole variety, and plus all the concrete preservation, the diamond grinding, and so forth. The performance of those treatments, how long does it last? How long before you have to come in with a follow-up treatment? What is the life cycle cost now when you do those preservation treatments? How does it impact your network condition and your budget? And then how do you quantify those benefits for presentation to stakeholders at all levels, including the public, the legislature, but also your people in your organization? And then how best do we communicate with the public? Because the public doesn't always understand why we are letting a road that's in poor condition get worse, but are treating roads that, from their point of view, look to be in good condition. But it is about maximizing resources. This year at TRB is pretty typical, but we do have a workshop on Sunday morning on building better chip seals. It is co-sponsored with the Committee on Pavement Maintenance, and we do a lot of co-sponsorship with them. On Tuesday morning, we have our committee meeting, and then on Tuesday afternoon, we have 2 podium sessions and 1 poster session. So Tuesday is going to be a good day for me to have eaten my Wheaties to make it through the day. It's going to be a very busy day, but a very productive one. Coming up in 2018, you have to really plan ahead in these committees. We've submitted and been approved for a webinar on moving toward quality assurance and quality control for pavement preservation treatments, and it was approved for the first half of 2018. And just so you know, as you're thinking about volunteering, the person who submits, who puts together a webinar, has to put together a topic and all of the speakers before you can suggest the webinar idea. So it has to be a really well thought out topic area. On behalf of the committee, I submitted a synthesis statement on contracting methods in the delivery of pavement preservation and pavement maintenance. That was submitted. We haven't heard yet. But a synthesis is essentially a survey and an analysis of what is current practice for handling preservation and maintenance. So it's a topic area that's very, very important to our section. AHD 18 is up for a rotation by the end of January in 2018. So now is the time to sign up as a friend and to attend the committee meeting and the sessions. Make sure you see me and you bring me your business card and you tell me that you're interested in being a young member in particular. And if you have any questions, my email address is right there, and I encourage you to email me with any questions you might have. I hope that I see you at the annual meeting. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Judy. Next, we have Tina Greenfield from Standing Committee on Winter Maintenance.
Hi, everybody. This is Tina Greenfield. I work for the Iowa Department of Transportation, and I'm their road weather coordinator, and I work almost exclusively in winter operations year-round. So I actually started my TRB career in the Surface Transportation Weather Committee as a member. I joined the TRB Winter Maintenance Committee a couple of years ago, and last year began my first year as chair after Max left. So I want to just give you a little update on what our committee is and what it does. So first of all, winter maintenance is something that will primarily impact, of course, the states or the nations across the world that receive a good amount of winter weather or frozen precipitation, frost, and stuff like that. But when you think of it, it's something that can have very dramatic impacts. If a weather event happens, an agency could just go out and push the snow around and spread some chemicals, but if they don't put a lot of thought into it or have their operations optimized, they could be doing it in a much less efficient way, more expensive, less safe for the public, longer times to get the road returned to normal than if they put a little thought and effort into it. So this committee is all about trying to find ways to basically optimize something that actually has a great deal of benefit if things are done right at the right time with the right material and with the knowledgeable workforce. So we do anything in winter maintenance, including policies, We have papers and discuss new de-icing chemicals themselves. So we have chemists on our committees. We have an interest in the methods and the strategies themselves that are employed out in the world. So we've got consultants, we've got people like me who work for DOT or some other agency. Performance measurement is a hot topic. It's kind of hard to improve if you don't measure your effectiveness, and so there's always been a lot of emphasis on how you keep track of that kind of a thing, especially when every storm is different. The storms hit different areas differently, so you've got a lot of confusing or confounding variables out there. You know, how do you wade through all that in order to get down to how effective were you? Our impacts potentially have quite a few environmental concerns associated with them. A lot of folks in my region are users of chloride and salt in particular, and you know, just about any de-icing material that you use, and including sand, which is not a chemical but just an abrasive inert material, have environmental impacts. So there's a lot of folks on our committee who have backgrounds in some kind of environmental field, and then things such as snow fence that isn't actually on the road itself but might be in the roadside environment. So like the other folks said, you don't have to be a member to participate in our committee, and we feel like we have a wide range of expertise that could find its way into this committee. In fact, my degree is in meteorology, so I'm a weather person, but we've got a very wide expertise base, and so you might find a niche in our group as well. You can go ahead and sign up as a friend on the MyTRB website, and again, like the other folks said on this conference call, that is really my resource. My friends are an important resource for my committee. We do a lot of paper reviews. We put things together in our subcommittees, and without our friends, a lot of things would not get done. So about our membership, you know, we have 26 members right now, 3 of which are young members. I actually started on the committee as a young member myself. 6 people on our committee are also international. We have a distribution. We've got 5 in academia. We have 12 people who are in the private sector or some kind of a consulting business or something like that. And then 9 folks like me that are in some level of government. We are up for rotation this January, so this will change. I've got to shuffle up my membership, as was talked about before. Every 3 years, the committees have to get rid of a third of their membership so that we can keep rotating fresh folks in, fresh perspectives. So I'll be coming up with my new list here very soon. So this January, also at the annual meeting, we are going to have a number of things happening. Monday is going to be our busy day. So first is going to be a joint session with the Surface Transportation Weather Committee. They're a very, I consider them a very close partner to our committee. We are going to be doing a joint session on predicting surface conditions, and then later that afternoon, we are going to have a poster session, also alongside the Surface Transportation Weather Committee. I think we're going to be back-to-back in the hall there. And then later that evening, our business meeting. And as was stated also, our door is open. You can feel free to actually, you know, go to one of these 2 sessions in the daytime, poster session or the lecture session. See if you know, find an interest there, and then if so, you can go ahead and attend the business meeting starting at 6. And then on Wednesday, we're going to have our other lecture session on some of the optimization processes that have been presented to us. are submitted to us in some of the papers Wednesday, first thing in the morning. One of the things that we do, we have in partnership with the Surface Transportation Weather Committee, the Equipment Committee, and AASHTO's Snow and Ice Cooperative Group. Every 4 years we put together the Winter Maintenance and Surface Transportation Weather Conference. We held this more recently back in April of 2016. And what we did was we went to a very interactive format with this session. We had the folks who presented papers for this meeting present them in a recorded fashion, which we posted online before the meeting commenced. So a lot of times when you go to these things like TRB especially, you know, there's so many things to watch and look at, and after a while your brain kind of gets full. And so by recording the meetings, we kind of allowed attendees to take these in at their own pace prior to coming to the meeting, and then at the meeting we dedicated the agenda to in-person topic discussions. So that really allowed people to interact with people from their in the winter maintenance and surface transportation field who might be in academia or government or whatever. They could talk about the things that are issues to them, hear about things that they might be able to help with. So like if they were a consultant, they could hear some of the problems that the different agencies were having and think how they might fit in, or they could hear about research that's being done that they think that they could take into a, you know, do the technology transfer and bring it into kind of a real world product or knowledge that they could give people. So it was very interactive, and we think that it went over extremely well. All of the research presentations that we accepted for this meeting and all of the notes and results from our discussions in person have been posted online at this link here. We also have a call for papers out. So if you are a researcher in this field particularly, we're seeking papers on sustainable de-icing practices. This is kind of a hot topic, so anything that is about balancing expectations of winter service versus environmental impacts, wastewater, mitigating overall salt usage, any other new de-icing chemicals that can be used as alternatives, just about anything that has an environmental impact focus, we are taking a very specific interest. We've also updated our research needs statements. In addition to the sustainable de-icing topic, we've added another research needs statement for automated and connected vehicle information, both on the fleet and use of private vehicle data that we could potentially collect and use from cars, passenger cars and such. And then also a statement on performance management and level of service as far as actually the business side of winter operations, cost versus safety and mobility, kind of long-term effects of various level of service goals, balancing road closure, safety versus, you know, when you close a road, you're impacting mobility. But so trying to get an idea of where the sweet spot is in that. So there's a lot of things that we can cover in winter maintenance, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all, and I hope to see you in January.
Thanks, Tina, and thank you for those excellent presentations. Leila, do we have any questions?
Okay.
Leila?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hello? Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Leila Haji-Babai, an assistant professor at State University of New York at Stony Brook, and I'm co-chairing YMC Operations and Preservation Group with Nicola. And first, I would like to thank all presenters for their very insightful tips and our webinar organizers for their significant contributions. And at this part of the webinar, I'm moderating the question and answer section. We didn't receive any question from the audience, but we have some questions that we can ask from the panelists. So all panelists are more than welcome to contribute to the responses. Okay, our first question is how we can get information on the time and location of Operations and Preservation Group Young Member Council meeting at TRB 2018. Probably this question goes to James. Or any other.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. I'm sorry. The best way to find out about those activities is to go to the annual meeting interactive program, and then you can type in operations and preservation and look at all of the different activities that come up, and the group activities, the young member council activities should come up at that time.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, how can a young member become a session moderator? Is there any criteria? What is the process? So any committee member can chime in.
This is Judy. I'll give that a first go. In the Pavement Preservation Committee, I usually ask the young members to moderate a session. So if you don't get it the first year, you're sure to get it the second year. I think it's a good experience, and it's not a painful thing to do. So in the pavement preservation area, young members do take on, that's one of the roles that I assign to them.
Hi, this is Lori. I think in our committee, mostly it's the person who organizes it. They have put the time into getting the speakers, organizing it, and they're the most familiar with it. So it's another perspective, but if you have made the effort in organizing the session, we want to give that some attention to the person who did it. And it can certainly be a young member. It can be anyone. I think all committee chairs are thrilled when someone offers to put together a session, and it's yes, and often it's their maybe one of their first times moderating. So that's another way. That's one way we do it.
Thank you. Our next question again goes to our committee chairs. When was the last time you did a rotation in your committee? Maybe one of the, at least one or two committee members can chime in. And the follow-up question is, are open positions in your committees limited, and how different this is between committees?
Can you repeat the question? It's not the best connection.
So when was the last time you did a rotation in your committee? Oh. And are open positions in your committee limited?
I think, I'm trying to remember who showed the slide that shows, I think it was James, the number of committee members, and you can have up to 5 young members and up to 6 international members, whatever those are kind of the rules. And then TRB tells the chairman you need to try and have a balanced committee so that you have state agencies, you have people from Federal Highway Administration, you have people from industry, you have people from academia and consulting, all different types of people. And so all those things go in, but they are not hard-coded rules. They're guidance for the committee chairs.
And oddly enough, there are some limitations, no more than 2 people from the same agency or organization. So we try to balance, make sure it's diverse both geographically and as Max walked through, just that range of knowledge and skill sets. Our rotation was this past year, 2017, and and of our 3 subcommittees, 3 of the co-chairs are members of the committee, and to expand our network, 3 of those co-chairs in each of the subcommittees, one of the co-chairs is a friend. And we felt that that was a good way to broaden our network. I'm trying to encourage our members to become more active. So currently our members are paper chair, research. Actually, we have 2 coordinators for research and paper, and again to do some succession building.
This is James. Within the maintenance and preservation section, there are several committees that are in the process of doing committee rotation now. Those committees are Maintenance and Operations Management, the Committee on Maintenance and Operations Personnel, the Pavement Preservation Committee, Pavement Maintenance Committee, the Committee on Sealants and Fillers for Joints and Cracks, the Committee on Polymer Concretes, Adhesives and Sealers, the Standing Committee on Maintenance Equipment, and, as Tina said, the Standing Committee on Winter Maintenance. So there are several opportunities to get plugged in within the maintenance and preservation section.
Okay, very well, thank you. We have some general questions too. How can we reach out to people we network with during the TRB annual meeting? Do you think following up afterwards is helpful? If positive, what's the best way to do so?
Yes, following up is helpful. This is Judy. I think it is helpful. I would encourage you to do it by email. I think that is, it's a relatively convenient way to be in touch, and you'll be able to do it in a way that people can fit in around the rest of their work.
Yeah, this is Max. Some of the committee meetings could have upwards of 50 or 60 people. So even if you have a chance to chat with the chair at the meeting, there's a lot of things on the chair's mind. So just a follow-up email it would never hurt. It's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. So our next question is how we can present a poster in an effective way, and how can we attract people to our poster? Any tips regarding the poster itself or our behavior? Overall, the question is how to make our poster more engaging.
This is Max. I think posters are a really great way to get your message across and to get people interested in your work. You can't put everything in the poster, so I would say if you can structure it so it invites questions, that would be good. Because in a poster session, like more than the other sessions, you have a really good opportunity for one-on-one interaction. And so people have a chance to ask detailed questions that you can answer for them, and then riff off into something else that you're both interested in.
I have to say that's a very good question. And what I would suggest is if you're a new attendee, walk through the poster sessions and see which ones get your attention and are well organized, so that when you need to do one, when you are accepted to do one in the future, you've got some good ideas. I mean, I think what people expect in for a poster session changes over time, and I would think that what's being showcased next year is what's very attractive to the attendees. That was a good question, because we don't see the posters. That's not what is part of the paper review. We only say this is worthy of a paper review. So I would say go look and go see what the poster sessions look like.
I would encourage you to use charts and graphs and photographs on your poster so that it isn't a series of essentially just text. It's very hard to take in just solid text when you're standing 3 feet away reading. You need to take into account the fact that the people are going to be reading your poster from a distance, so the font needs to be big enough. And then a really nice quality of printing. It makes a big difference. I realize that you can't always do that, but in as much as you can, make your poster as attractive and engaging as you can.
This is Tina.
Yeah.
One other
Okay.
thing that I would add is a lot of times when I'm walking through the columns, having something that can catch my eye or my attention or my curiosity would really suck me in. You know, a title that is intriguing or graphs that might be telling something that I can, from a distance without actually having to walk up and read the whole thing, give me an idea of what this research was about, what were some of the major findings, and kind of give me like signs that I would actually stop and walk in at that point. You know, something to really hook me as I'm basically just buzzing by.
Okay, thank you. Next question is about your recommendation for individuals with public speaking stress when they want to give a talk in a lecture session. And the same question is basically applicable to individuals who have English as their second language. So please comment on both.
I think it's always a good idea, unless you are a very poised public speaker, to practice your presentation. Practice it so that when you're standing up there, you can get a sense of how fast or how slow you need to go. And also so that you're comfortable both with the language that is maybe ideal, but also coming up with some alternate language when your memory fails you and you need to do a little ad-libbing on the spot. I would also suggest practicing in front of a few other friends, graduate students, coworkers, whoever, so that they ask you questions so that you are prepared to answer questions that you didn't prepare for. That's my suggestions.
This is Lori. I always think that the most difficult position is that of the moderator, because they have asked the speakers, you get 15 minutes, and we have to leave time for questions, and every speaker says, yes, I will speak for only 15 minutes, and they go on for 30. And that's really, you have to learn to, you're not going to tell everything. Most likely your presentation will be posted, made available. People who are interested will come up and speak to you afterwards, but just make it as specific as possible, to the point as possible, and under rather than over is probably more appreciated. So as previously, practice, and I'm still not the best polished speaker. It takes time. Your first presentation will not be as good as your second one, and your fifth one will be much better than the first two. So you'll get more comfortable in front of speaking to people, and with someone waving under your nose, you've got 2 more minutes. You really, you have to respect the other speakers as well. So it's, you're there as a panel, and that, I think the other is, but absolutely do practice ahead of time.
This is Max. I'll just add a bit to that. Is simple is better than complicated. People have to understand, what you're saying. They don't have a chance to study it. So if you have a complicated message, you have to find a way of presenting it simply, even if you don't tell the whole story.
Thank you so much.
For folks who have English as their second language, one thing that I've seen it go bad the other way is talk to the moderator beforehand about your comfort level with the questions. Sometimes if you are not very good at English, the question section is absolutely nerve-wracking. And sometimes questions can be better handled via email or written communication, or sometime when you don't have to stand up there and stumble through understanding a question in front of a whole bunch of people. So if that is where you are in your English language skills, talk to the moderator beforehand, and the moderator can usually accommodate some few special questions, but then we'll be more prepared to step in if the questions come out and you don't understand them well enough or can't phrase them well enough to be effective at that time. And they'll just cut the question and answer short and help people to communicate with you in a more friendly manner after the session is done. And that's usually no problem.
Thank you. Our next question is probably going to James. How does TRB decide to assign a paper to a certain committee?
Oh, that's a very good question.
It's magic.
So on or about August the 1st, we get about 6,000 papers that are submitted for consideration for the annual meeting. And so within those first few weeks in August, the TRB staff that are assigned to the committees and topic areas review the papers that have been submitted for that particular subject area. So the TRB staff, in consultation with other staff that are in other areas, as well as the paper review coordinators, begin to funnel papers into the appropriate committees. And so the first level is the TRB staff assigned to a particular subject area. The second level is a TRB staff that's assigned to an area that may be of interest of that particular paper. And then the next level is between TRB staff and the paper review coordinators. And it's through that process that the papers are tagged and identified and assigned to committees for review.
Okay, thank you. We have another question about TRB registration. Again, probably goes to James. Do the presenters need to register to be able to attend TRB committee meetings or receptions?
The committee meetings, no. You do not need a registration to attend a committee meeting. Committee meetings are open to the public. However, any function that is happening in the convention center, you need to have your badge. You need to be registered for. That is the convention center's security policy to make sure that everyone is there has a badge.
Fair enough, thank you. Our last question is somehow covered by Max, but more specifically, how can we push an idea and lead a research needs statement in the community meeting? How can we follow up afterwards? And do the research needs statements lead to call for proposals?
Okay, I'll start with that one. The research needs statements go into a TRB database, which James can probably talk about more than I can. The committees normally select some specific ones that they think are the most important, and they promote those to be a TRB synthesis or to be a National Cooperative Highway Research Program study, which is usually a 2 or 3 year effort. For the NCHRP, those are actually sponsored by AASHTO, and so the TRB committee sponsoring it would liaise or coordinate with a similar AASHTO committee. In between them, they would promote it to the AASHTO members who eventually select research projects by vote. So that's the NCHRP. TRB synthesis, I'm not exactly sure of the process for that. James could speak to that. But in either case, I think most of the discussion about developing research needs and promoting specific ones for funding to different agencies, that usually begins at the committee meeting and carries on after the meeting through email or teleconferences. So I'll leave it for James to expand on that, and the committee chairs would probably like to as well.
Yeah, the research needs statements database is basically a repository of ideas that our committees have come up with in terms of research needs. And they try to frame them in a way that it would be conducive to a funding agency to look at it, be able to use that format, to be able to move it forward. The research needs statement database in and of itself is not a funding mechanism. It is not a funding body. It is there to provide the informational resource that funding bodies can go on to get what they need in terms of projects to fund. As Max stated, in terms of the projects that are initiated within the cooperative research programs, the committees themselves cannot sponsor or recommend a project per se for NCHRP. They don't select it. The state DOTs actually select those research projects. But as Max said, if you are aligned with an AASHTO committee that has interest in that particular topic, then you can work with members of that AASHTO committee to get the information from the research needs statement and get their support to move it forward to go through the possible funding process. But again, our tool, a repository of information, not a funding mechanism. In order for it to be funded, more steps have to be taken. And for the most part, those steps are taken by AASHTO or state DOT.
Thank you. And so thanks for all the valuable tips and insights. I now pass it to Nilu.
Thank you, Leila. I just want to take a moment and thank our presenters today and thank all of the participants who took an interest in this topic. We hope this is a worthwhile experience for you. Again, a recorded version of this webinar along with the presentation slides will be available on our website. On behalf of National Operations Center of Excellence and our presenters, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
This concludes.
Thanks.
This will be right with you.
You have been forwarded to a voicemail system. However, the person at 11675 does not subscribe to this service. A valid attendance number has not been specified. Your session cannot be continued at this time. Please try again later. Goodbye.